St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City as, like you said, what they would probably consider a pro-Palestinian, but a lot of us consider a pro-Hamas. Protests broke out when? Those Holy of Days during Easter services. Let's take a look.
Free, free Palestine! Stop the genocide! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
If you're watching this right now, you're seeing a handful of protesters with banners now starting to get in a scuffle and a fight with other people, presumably who work at the church, or maybe security.
Trying to get them off.
Because look, if you're in New York City and this breaks out, your first reaction isn't going to be, well, this is just a nice, peaceful protest that will end very quickly, especially when it involves radical Islam. You probably think, sadly, the gunfire's coming, explosions are coming, so get your family out. So imagine how scary it would be to be in that situation if you are just a regular parishioner of St. Patrick's Cathedral in, again, New York City, one of the probably most popular churches in our country. Really sad to watch it. Well, you talked about this earlier. And it's always the case with Christianity. If you flip it and you put this situation in any other religion,
if a pro-Israel protester broke up a Ramadan prayer service in a mosque, the outcome would not be the same.
Yeah.
You would see
the
outrage from the left in our country and from terrorists in the region. You would see another Benghazi happen, or at least the left would blame another Benghazi on the fact that pro-Israel protesters decided to go in and make a statement in a mosque. And you know what? That isn't the appropriate place. And there's a reason that's not happening. You're not seeing that happen where a Friday prayer service during Ramadan, or even a daily prayer service, because during Ramadan they have services every day, it is not something that is happening. It's not going across the headlines because that's not the appropriate forum for that speech. And instead, we're seeing these protests spill over from Times Square and from around the city of New York into places of worship during a holy Easter ceremony. And I think it's also telling, looking at the audience that are in attendance, because they're not in New York. People can give back when there's a protester. You see lots of videos of protesters going at it on the streets in New York. Yeah. I think it's chilling to see how quiet and still they were. And it probably goes to that mindset you were talking about of, you're in a church, you're not expecting this to break out. And if it does, you don't know what's going to happen next.
Thankfully, it was stopped, and it was stopped pretty quickly. But still,
3 of the individuals were charged.
Yeah,
so you do have to give some credit to the police of New York and the people there that would charge people that would disrupt an Easter service.
Sadly, it's probably nervous for them to arrest them.
Right.
I mean, we live in a world where it's probably a brave cop who decided, I'm going to actually arrest these protesters and not just kick them out to the street. So you know what? Good on them. You can't just go in and do these kind of things and expect no consequences. There's also a letter from 19 senators, and we're a little concerned about that.
This is the issue and why we have a great government affairs team. We have our office in Jerusalem. We have all these people taking a look at little details to make sure that nothing gets past us. And when you see a rhetoric shift from the left, you know there's a reason behind it. They don't make a change in a way they talk about something for decades for no reason. There's established language. And when you see them use different words, a lot of times it causes concern. So this is a letter from 19 U.S. senators, all Democrats, and they sent a letter to President Biden calling for President Biden to recognize a non-militarized Palestinian state. Now, that's a unique word. You don't normally hear the term non-militarized. The normal term in these situations, in any wartime situation, is demilitarized. You think of the demilitarized zones that you hear about, whether it be in between North and South Korea or in the wake of World War II, places that were demilitarized zones. So they changed what used to be called a demilitarized Palestinian state. That was the official language. That was the established way that they would call for the establishment of a Palestinian state from the left. Now they're using this term non-militarized. And what a lot of analysts are keying into, and this is where it's a dangerous move when the left gets behind it, especially in an election year, is that a non-militarized zone would mean you have to take out Hamas. You have to take out the terrorists to make it non-militarized, or demilitarized rather. A non-militarized zone could allow them to let the Palestinian Authority become the leader of the government because they don't have an official military. And they don't have to do anything about the terrorists, but they could establish the state basically with status quo, with no real concessions from the Palestinian people and without wiping out Hamas. So it's another strike against Israel because Israel needs Hamas to be wiped out before ever thinking of a two-state solution because their security and their people's lives are on the line. So this is a very interesting term. You know that this shift from saying demilitarized to non-militarized wasn't on accident.
Yeah, and for most people, they would probably just not notice it.
They don't bat an eye at it.
Yeah, so I guess break that down a little bit. What's the key difference, or do we even know that yet? Or is it more just we know that they are messing with nuance?
Right. It probably is them messing with nuance to get closer to a Palestinian state. Because if it's demilitarized, then Hamas has to go. They can't have basically a standing army that Hamas has, and Hamas controls Gaza. They're an elected government there. So demilitarized would mean that even if Hamas isn't the leadership of the new Palestinian state, they've got to go because they're a de facto army for the Palestinian people. A non-militarized state would mean that the Palestinian Authority, who doesn't have a military because they rely so heavily on the terror, could then take leadership as status quo. No need to get rid of Mahmoud Abbas. No need to get rid of any of the bad actors in the Palestinian Authority. But it could be a signal that they are willing to let the status quo remain and just elevate statehood for the Palestinians under the leadership of Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian Authority.
I think a lot of it's political. Heading into political season, they're seeing the writing on the wall that a lot of people amongst Democrats are looking at what's going on in Israel and are not in the typical Joe Biden Israel playbook, which would have been, by the way, someone who's very supportive of Israel. And you have them authorizing weapons and still doing those things. So maybe, in Joe Biden's heart of hearts, he knows what's right here, but is having to play, the administration and mainline Democrats are having to play to this extreme base because that extreme base at one point was the minority. And I think we're seeing it grow and grow to be, if a celebrity says it, therefore it is the fact.
And to your point as well, this is a political season. Yeah. And two of the senators that signed on to this were the senators from Minnesota, Amy Klobuchar and also,
we know that's been an issue,
and Senator Tina Smith. Yeah. We know that that's an issue in their community. So if they can take a talking point back to their community, look what I did.
Yeah.
Look what I did to encourage President Biden. He's going to get on the same page. Maybe don't abandon the party here because we're doing the right thing. We're trying to get a Palestinian state, and they don't even have to get rid of Hamas. Yeah. You have to think that way, that the Democrat Party could be devious enough to say, this is also for the election. Yeah. This is just to try to get votes where we know we're at risk of losing them in the hotbed of anti-Israel, pro-Hamas sentiment, Michigan and Minnesota.